Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast. And just before we start today's podcast, I'd like to take a second to nominate my Reformed Orthodox Warlock, Bill Clinton. My name is Martin O'Dwyer, and I'm your host for today's episode. And joining me, as always, is your host, Conor O'Brien. How are we today, Conor?
Yep.
Did you notice I was like flinching away from the mic as I was doing that because I was also ashamed of that joke?
Oh, that was just the most bizarre thing.
At 4 a.m. it was even more surreal.
Yeah. What a weird... And you remember, the man is like 15. So for those who don't know what we're talking about the guy who interrupted the Game Awards by running up on stage and thanking his Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. He's just some random 50-year-old. Was he a streamer or something? Or is he? I think he's just a random dude.
I think he's literally just like a 15-year-old kid who was there and just went, "I'm gonna run on stage." When Elden Ring is winning Game of the Year, like, which is like that's pretty shitty because like all anyone is talking about is him running up on stage and acting like an idiot when realistically, they should be talking about Elden Ring winning Game of the Year, which. Just as a note,
was it during the Elden Ring Game of the Year announcement?
Yeah, like they got Game of the Year, and the lads they're walking down from their seats to go up to the stage to do their speeches, and you can see them. They were like There's like rows, like there's a row here and a row here, and they're walking down this one as a group together. But to get to the stage, they have to cross in front of the other one and get up stage. And as the camera's following them as they're walking, right, so when they get across the bottom. You can see, if you look in the background, the kid who interrupts them is just walking down doing this. He's just walking down from way in the back. He just walks all the way down while clapping. Just like full on, like, I'm with these guys. And he just runs up to them as they get to the stage and just like joins in with the crowd. And like, I thought he was maybe like an intern or an interpreter because they had one interpreter. And he did a good job, to be fair to him, but he was clearly terrified. He was like... He was really, really shaky about it. So I thought maybe it was another interpreter and maybe someone else other than Miyazaki was going to speak. And so I didn't even question it when he was like, they're going up the stairs, and he runs up behind Miyazaki and puts his hand on his shoulder. Like, go on, go up there. Yeah, there's the stage. And it's like this random 15-year-old. But yeah, I think that's the most that came over. He got arrested after the award ceremony, and actually when they do a wide shot of the crowd when they're going up the steps, you can see like he's with them, and if you look on either side of the frame, you can see like two security guards just centering in on him.
Yeah, the camera stayed on your man, on this young fella for like until he said what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And once he said it, the camera cut to a wide shot. But even then, you could see a body of security guards, like a bunch of them, rush on, grab him, and get him off. And I forget who was hosting. Whoever was hosting was like, well. Yeah, he was just like, well, interesting night, and just kept on rolling, which is exactly what you should do as a host in a situation like that.
All that was in my head.
Just keep it rolling.
All that was in my head when that happened, and he was like, well, that was an interesting night, and just went on. I was like, that wasn't supposed to... Well, actually, no, I realised that wasn't supposed to happen when he gave a shout-out to his rabbi. But like, when Jeff just moved on, all that was in my head is, I put in The Simpsons, don't worry, folks, he's getting the help he needs. And then like the screen flashes up and the bouncers are just kicking the shit out of Homer.
Potato man, where the hell have you been?
Oh man, that was such a good
we've talked about this a lot recently, mostly in the context of your man, I think, at the Game Awards, where if you happen to put on a high vis or a hard hat, or you have a lanyard on you,
or a suit,
Foil Arms and the Hog do a really good skit about it, where one fella will come out and be like, out of the way, folks, out of the way, I got a high vis vest, out of the way, I'm coming through, and then he's doing that, and then some other fella, one of the lads comes out and he goes, watch out lads, lanyard coming through, lanyard here, and then he pushes past the other fella, and then another fella comes out. And he's like, watch out, lads, I got a big bunch of keys. He's got a huge bunch of keys on one of those zippy things. And he's like, back up, got a big bunch of keys. But, like, I've seen videos of people pulling stuff like that where they just put on a high vis and, like, a lanyard that says nothing. It's just a lanyard. And then they'll walk up to places. And they'll be like, hey, can we just... we just need to get in here for a second. And people are like, oh, as soon as they see the high vis, they're like, oh yeah, sure. And people are like, will open doors or let them skip the queue or whatever. And like, I think it was the two Australian lads I was watching, and they managed to get into a zoo just by walking up to the regular ticket gates, but there's one on like the far side that wasn't being used.
Yeah.
And they kind of flagged down someone who was in the ticket booth, and they were like, "Sorry, can we just get in through here, please?" And then the person in there saw the high vis and the hard hat, and they were like, "Oh yeah, sure." Opened the gate, and they just walked on in. Very funny. Speaking of
I wonder has anyone ever...
Australians and the Game Awards, I saw Alana Pierce had a post where I think her dress was meant to be inspired by like Nier Automata or something like that. It was kind of all black and it had a hood and stuff like that. But she had a picture of it with her holding a sword. And she was like, "Can you believe I didn't get laid on my sword, but some 15-year-old managed to get on stage?"
There was actually like earlier in the show there was Karen Fukuhara who plays Kimiko in The Boys. She came on to do like a promotional bit for the Callisto Protocol, and she literally comes on stage and goes, "There's a murderer in the room." And like, can you imagine if that kid had gone on stage and his intention wasn't just to troll, it was to like, I don't know, maybe stab somebody, and then like 20 minutes later Kimiko was like, "One is a killer. One is."
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And the man in the audience is like, "Oh, it's me. Oh, right, okay."
What was she when she said there's a murderer in the room? Who was she talking about?
I think it was it was just kind of a roundabout way of getting back to like the tension of like Callisto Protocol and like, oh, someone's going, you know, it's a horror game and you're never safe, and you know, someone could turn into whatever they're calling their version of a necromorph in that game.
Yeah. It's actually weird, fun kind of anecdote about that. The original, so the guy who I think directed or the game,
one of the creators of Dead Space, right?
Yeah, one of the lead guys on Dead Space went on to do Callisto Protocol, and his original vision for Dead Space wasn't that it would be a mining colony ship, but that it would be a space prison. And now they're actually doing the space prison concept with Callisto Protocol. I've heard it's okay, but it doesn't quite live up to Dead Space, unfortunately. Honestly, very high bar to try and match.
If you want a reference for it, a friend of mine, Dylan, who I think I've mentioned before, he's platinumed all of the FromSoft Soulsborne series.
Yeah.
He also platinumed the most recent God of War Ragnarok, I think, like the week it came out. So he, like, for reference, like, he enjoys difficult games and is quite good at them. He described the Callisto Protocol as ball-achingly hard.
Oh wow. That's really saying something coming from someone who usually takes that kind of stuff in his stride.
And like, he would have played God of War on like the hardest difficulty as well and stuff like that. I didn't, and I don't.
Yeah, how are you doing with God of War? I was literally playing it just before I came up here to do the.
Nice. I'm hoping to maybe finish it tonight. I'm gonna, like, when we finish recording, I'm gonna just jump on and stay up till like maybe like 3-4 in the morning, just play, because I don't have work till 10. So I'll just playing a few games. I think last I was there, I was just kind of doing bits. I'm at a point where they're like, you know, hey, you can go and follow the story now if you want, but we know there's loads of small little bits you've not done yet if you want to do those. Oh, yeah. So I went around, killed a few more ravens, got all the raven armor, upgraded.
So did I actually.
Oh, it's so nice, isn't it?
I literally I heard there was a lot of ravens in Svartalheim. So I literally looked up at Ravens, Ragnarok, Svartalheim, whatever. And I got a good guide, I think on IGN or something. And I just went through them, and I needed 5 more to get the 18 that you need for the armor. So I have all them. I upgraded them all, not fully. You know the way like the armor upgrades tend to go 2 steel, 2 dwarven steel, 2 Asgardian ingots. Yeah. I've done the first Asgardian ingot one, where the chest is 2 and the gauntlets and the waist are 1 ingot each. And now I'm trying to do the second one, which is the one that gets you all the gold trim on them and the kind of wavy pattern.
I have that. It's nice.
Yeah, but I need to have 4 ingots for the chest and 2 for the wrists and 2 for the waist, which is a lot. And I cannot find them for the life of me. I had the gauntlets upgraded, but nothing else, because I need 6 more and they're hard to find.
I think I got some of that gear from like killing draugrs and closing draug rolls. Welcome to the Micflayers gaming podcast, by the way, folks.
Yeah, sorry, we'll get into it. We do this all the time. The first 10 to 15 minutes is just general chit chat.
No, I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, I was running around. I was trying a few other berserker fights. There's one that I've killed 3. And now any of the ones I found recently have just been whooping my ass. There's one where it's a berserker, and then there's 2 witches with him as well.
You were telling me about that one, yeah.
Good God, that one's a ball ache. It's fun, like, but it's a
Witches are a pain in the hole to fight one on
But
one anyway.
they're like way no, but they're not like the witches you like have Atreus shoot with arrows and then you just mash their faces in. These are
Right.
like boss witches, but is it boss witch? Like, they're like boss enemies as well. So there's basically like a boss and two mini bosses. And it's like
Yeah.
big brutish like terrible berserker and then like basically two casters. And I was trying to do the thing where I would focus him, ignore them and just dodge around, and it was working well for a while until he cornered me. I had dodged around like four of his things, and then the two witches just went, right, fire projectile, ice projectile, dodge one, let's see how you do with the other. And I
Yeah.
just got melted.
Interesting that you said that they're fire and ice projectiles and you got melted. I've done the first of the berserkers, which you kind of do as part of the story anyway. You're kind of passing that way, which was challenging but doable. And then I tried one also in Svartalheim who has a bunch of lightning powers. And
That guy,
fuck him.
he's the zealot, I think.
No, the Zealous is the one on the Lake of Nine. I literally beat her just about 20 minutes before I came up here.
Yeah. Nice.
She was fine. She was fast, but like if you get your timings, it's just regular dodges, which wasn't too bad. Yeah, the lightning guy is the only other one I tried then, and he's an absolute pain because he's just like it's a lightning and it's everywhere. You're basically could put you in the arena, the mini arena, and the arena is just like, oh yeah, he's like, there's lightning. I've just decided there's lightning everywhere. The air is lightning now. Deal with that and try to beat me now. Like, it's painful.
Are you fighting him with Atreus or Freya?
I tried it the first time with Freya, who I like. I actually like Freya more as a companion.
Oh, I'd know. I think I just have more upgrades put into Atreus. And my Atreus is a fucking machine.
I need to upgrade mine because I spent so long with Freya that I put loads of upgrades into her, and then of course the story splits, so I didn't put much into Atreus. And now he's back, and I'm like, oh, I guess I should probably kind of backfill your abilities. So I spent all his abilities on him, as in the stuff he does as a playable character, and not the stuff he does as a support character.
Yeah, no, same.
Because it felt like that was the safer bet, when actually I probably need to more evenly divide that now.
Yeah, Atreus,
we're getting into spoiler territory.
Yeah, we
God
stop
of War
that.
as
But
well.
no, I'm doing good. I think I should be able to finish it tonight if I just ignore all the side quests and just go hammering tongs at it.
I am. I'm just curious where you are, because if you think you're basically at the finish line, I am after doing the second the second Vanaheim, where you have to rescue somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the thing crashes and that guy.
Yeah. So how far behind you am I, out of curiosity?
Oh God. I did a lot of side quests. Like I literally ran like run after run after run into Berserkers for a while and literally did nothing other than that. But I'd say I'm maybe like 1 to 2 hours ahead of you, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Okay. I just want to get it. It feels like things are ramping up accordingly. That I think I'm in the latter half of it.
Like I'll put it, so I've not played it in a few days, so I'm not super sharp on exactly where I am because I was doing like a lot of side questy stuff.
I get you. Yeah.
But I think like it's the next point you will get to where they'll basically go, hey, you could do the story, or if you want, you can run around and do a bunch of stuff. Because as far as I know, you can still run around the world after you finish the game and do all the side quests and stuff like you did in the first one. So I think I'm just gonna try and plow through the story, enjoy that story, because Gav said that last hour is amazing. And then I'm going to just do all the other stuff. Then Connor, then we're gonna play Elden Ring.
And then I'm going to be partaking in Elden Ring. What class did I decide I was going to play?
Samurai.
Sorry?
You said you were going to play Samurai.
No, so I was looking at Samurai, but I want to do the one that's like that's a Gish class.
Yeah. Oh,
is it like someone that has high dex, high int, or something like that?
See, like you can kind of do multiple Gish classes, because like my character in DS3 is a Gish, but it's strength faith, which is basically like a paladin build.
I noticed a paladin one. It's not the paladin I was looking at.
But like you can, what I'm saying is like you can, like if you want to do a Gish build, you can go like strength or dex, and then like either int or faith, or is there another one? It's been so long since I've actually played Elden Ring. I feel like an idiot now trying to remember if there's a third type of. It's like I think it's arcane. It's like int, faith, and.
Intelligence. Arcane is there, yeah. Arcane, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, maybe is it Prophet? No,
Oh,
it's not
I think
Prophet. I don't
I
think.
think it might be Prophet that you were looking at. But like, if you want to do there, there's like a Templar style thing, or am I maybe thinking of something else?
Uh, no, Prophet seems more like what you would do if you were, because Prophet has quite high faith and not very high arcane. There was one I think I wanted that was like relatively high arcane. I knew it would end up being kind of a Jedi slash Eldritch Knight situation, you know?
Yeah, and like regardless, you can just like level, because like I just did the warrior and stuff, and like you can just level to your specific one. There's the here, Advantage Roger warrior.
Yeah, it's more about your kind of starting. Are there? We should be discussing this
Yeah, we should.
not on
Yeah,
podcast time.
I think Confessor is the one you're looking for, by the way.
Confessor has, yeah, that seems more like we're going down the line of Paladin again, though.
But it's got 14 faith, it's got 13 mind, and it's got 9 int. Those are all the like it's got all the, no, yeah, we'll talk about D&D now. And not turn this into another FromSoft podcast. It's been probably like way too long that we've been talking about this.
We just hit the 16-minute mark. So yes,
Okay, yeah,
probably.
let's actually talk about what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so
Okay.
we're going into the second half of our one D&D coverage, talking about the changes to the feats, rules, and spells that have come along in the second half. Really handily, we've got 4 feats straight up, and they take the form of the 4 epic boons, and then they've given us a rules glossary. And one thing I was saying to Conor that I absolutely am such a big fan of that they're doing, they've given us a change log, where they
Yeah.
basically just show us exactly what stuff has been changed, and if there's anything added specifically, they include that as well, which is super handy. And there's about 14 of those that we're going to try and run through today, and just kind of give a bit of a chat about. Conor, what do you think about epic boons in D&D currently?
Well, okay, I think they're cool. I think they're a really cool idea. They kind of do and kind of don't replace. What were they called before? Were
Oh,
they epic levels or prestige levels or
are
something?
you in
Maybe
previous
I'm thinking
editions?
wrong.
Like,
Yeah, there was the thing where you
I
could
think it
level
was.
beyond 20.
I think it was like prestige.
Yeah, maybe I'm just playing too much of the new Modern Warfare. But they, yeah, basically you could level beyond 20 before, and they have specialized classes, but you can only become part of these subclasses or whatever once you hit
Yeah.
20th level and beyond. Um, these are, I guess, are kind of the fifth edition equivalent, where you just get what is undeniably a very powerful ability.
Sometimes.
Um, well, yeah. Here's the thing. They're okay. I will say they are all very powerful. They're all very good. I don't think anyone at any level, 1 to 20, would turn their nose up at any one of these.
True.
However, some of them are more powerful than others. Which, look, you get that with regular feats as well. That's nothing new. I think they're cool. My kind of thing is like, if I'm perfectly honest, right? And I don't know, are wizards trying to tweak the game that because they've done a lot of surveys over the
Mm.
past couple of years, and I know that like most games don't really get past the like 12 to 15 is where most games
Yeah.
tend to end, and I get why, because I've run campaigns now. You know, we're gonna hit 20 by the end of this campaign.
Mm.
uh I've done that for 2 long-term campaigns, and I can tell you firsthand that everything from about 12th level up scales exponentially. And I don't mean in terms of challenge for the players, it challenge for the DM, because you now have to find more monsters that are high level that make sense for your world, or you have to homebrew certain things because your players are way too OP and they all have 3 magic items or more, and they're overpowered, and they've got this thing and that thing, and they've bought up all the potions they need, blah blah blah. So your players, like, it's really hard to avoid the power creep in the game, but players get really really powerful towards the end. Yeah, so about that time, between like 12 and 15 is where the game really goes off the rails, and it takes a lot of more work for the DM to keep things in line. With that in mind, if Wizards are trying to make it so that the game can continue, or it's easier to continue the game beyond that level kind of frame, then Epic Boons are a really cool idea. Otherwise, I don't really know why they're focusing on them when other than the fact I know they're rejigging the classes and stuff like that to have epic boons and stuff like that, but I don't know. It for me, it's like, why are we spending so much time on these? Because this isn't the first set of them we got. We got them like maybe 2 UAs back or something as
Yeah.
well. And I'm like, why are we spending so much time on this thing that most people won't get to in your typical D&D game, whether you're running one-offs or a campaign that takes place over a couple of months, might run from levels 1 to 8. No, sorry, not 1 to 8, from levels like 5 to 8 or 5 to 10 or something like that would be a range for like a short campaign. How many of us are out there playing campaigns 1 to 20, or just doing high level one shots that you could pick these epic boons? I don't know. Sorry, I'm just complaining now. But yeah, I just think I would rather, I don't know, I guess we see other stuff, more focus on the more core rules that are going to affect everybody, see what new tweaks we're getting to spells, see what new classes we're getting, stuff like that. That's, or not, well, not new classes, but edits to existing classes.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I think we should be focusing on more. Whereas we've seen epic boons come up more than once now, and I'm like, is this really
Sorry, you cut out there for a second, Con.
Oh, I just said, is this really the best use of our time?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It gives me a bit of a feeling of like putting a plaster on a bullet wound.
Yeah, it's like,
You know, it's like, yeah, I guess it'll do like a little good, but it doesn't really address the larger issue.
it's like, oh, I don't know, how'd you call it?
And like the big differences as well is like I suppose now they're restricting certain boons to specific groups as well. So like all the ones presented here, the Epic Boon of Fate, Spell Recall, and True Sight, they're all restricted to the mage or priest group.
Yeah, and I get why they're putting them in here as well, because we're obviously looking at the cleric in this one. So it makes sense that they would show us one specific to that group. But yeah, I know don't get me wrong. It's not bad by any stretch.
No.
I'm always happy for more content. I would rather they front load the UAs by going, maybe not right away because you might need some breathing space between them. But like, so far we got what? What was the very first one we got? Was that the specialists?
The very first one, D&D one we got. Actually, do you know what, we can like give me 1 second. I have one of D&D Beyond open. I can check. I don't think it was the experts one. I feel like the experts one was maybe the second one.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Maybe it was a separate.
they have them list. It was character origins.
It was character origins first. Okay.
If you go onto the 1D&D page, they have them listed in ascending order chronologically.
Yes,
so there's character origins, expert classes, and cleric and revised species.
Are we only on 3? I thought that we were on 4. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping we'll get. Yeah, I just want them to front load the important stuff, because if they do that right, if you look at the most crucial stuff first, the stuff that everyone has to deal with right now, like
levels 1 to 10, basically.
Things that affect level 1 to 10, things that affect all the classes, like get all the classes stuff out as early as possible, because that means that we have loads of time then for you to release updated UAs where you tweak things to adjust for the feedback you're receiving from the surveys.
And I think there has been, in particular, looking at stuff like the influence action updates, has been some clear direction taken from feedback. I'm still not like a huge fan of it, but like, yeah, you can see that they're like they're listening at least partially to what people are saying.
I do feel as though, based on stuff like that we're seeing, even we talked about it last week, the Dragonborn has been reworked in this one, and that's a very direct response to people, because we had the base dragon in the PHB, and then we had dragons that were redone again in Fizzbands, and they were really, really good.
Yeah.
And then we had the UA that came out last time, wasn't as good, because the dragons seemed to be dumbed down from what they were in Fizzbands. And then people were like, why is this worse than one thing we got before? And now they've kind of brought it back again so that it's more in line with it. So they obviously do listen to the feedback on this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Same with the Ardling. Now, I know I complained a lot last week about the Ardling, but people said, hey, we don't really need another celestial race, maybe focus on the animal stuff, and that's exactly what they did. So they are listening to people.
Yeah, exactly. Just because like we're not made necessarily like fans of what they've done when the things they've done as a result of that feedback doesn't mean we don't appreciate that they're like actually listening to what people are saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to get onto the Ardling.
Yeah, again. Yeah.
I said my piece last week. Feel free to check that out on last week's episode of the podcast. But yeah, like I do feel like they are very much taking. Here's the thing though, when you have like thousands, like what was it 40,000 people approximately?
48,000 people, I think they said.
Yeah. So when you have that many people
That's half
sending
the
in.
population of the city we live in, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have that many people sending you feedback and you're trying to comb through it to get, and notice trends and identify patterns on things that people universally or majority in a majority like or dislike, you're not always going to be able to get right down to
Mm-hmm.
the nitty gritty in it. It's going to be like instead of handling very specific things, you might just see, hey, there's a general dislike of this part of this particular species, or there's a very general like of this particular class feature, or a want for it to be better. Let's improve that somehow, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Identifying that kind of stuff is I imagine very very challenging. So yeah, I mean, look, as long as they can kind of identify that certain things are not liked or people that don't necessarily respond to them, then we can at least they can try to change it to something else, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's a good.
Whether
I guess it's a good thing wizards can learn identify.
hey,
Hey.
you need a pearl worth 100 gold pieces.
I'm sure they have a pearl worth 100 gold pieces. You know that. Let's jump into the actual changes we have so far. So the first one on the list is the aid spell. So initially, my impression of it when I first read the changes, I thought, oh, that's a buff. Oh no, it's just overall a buff. Sorry. So the original aid spell, I believe, the original aid spell, in terms of its actual casting time, range, and duration, it's all the same. It's still an action to cast, range 30 feet, and the duration is instantaneous. So just bang, it happens. The old spell used to be you can choose 3 creatures and you give them 5. You raise their hit. You give them 5 temporary hit points basically, and then and that's a second level. And then for every spell slot, if you cast it at a higher level, every spell slot above second, they would get an additional 5 HP. What's happened here is with the new updated aid spell, you can now choose 6 creatures.
So what was it before? 3, you said?
3, yeah. So it's a buff. It's just a straight up buff.
That is really good.
Unless I'm missing something on that, although I don't think I did. I'm just going to check the old version of aid really quickly.
Yeah. So you have the change log there as well, don't you?
I do, yeah. But rather the change log just says what's changed rather than said what things have been changed rather than how they have been changed. If you get me. Yeah.
They did that to us on work as well. We have like
sorry,
knowledge bases we need to follow, and they'll go, "Hey, on the 23rd, we changed something about this. We won't tell you what, but we changed something, and you figure it out."
Okay. I don't know how I missed this when I was reading it. So the original aid spell is choose 3 creatures in range, and their hit point maximum and current hit points increase by 5 for the duration, and it was 8 hours instead.
Ah, okay. And this is
an instant.
just 10 HP, so you hang on to it until you short rest,
it's an instantaneous spell. As well. It's instantaneous spell rather than the 8 hours. And now it's 6 instead of 3. The health increase is still the same, but obviously you don't get the hit point maximum. You just get the 10 HP.
10 HP.
But that kind of does, I suppose, the same as what both of those would do. You raise your maximum HP by 5, but you also gain 5 HP. So you basically just gain 5 temporary hit points as well in terms of like effective in combat.
Well, the previous version would have allowed you to heal back up those 5 if you lose them, whereas the 10 HP doesn't. But I mean, the balance there is that it's affecting twice as many creatures now. So that's a pretty good. I like the 8 spell in both versions. I think both are pretty usable. But this is still a good spell. I could see myself taking that if I was a paladin or a cleric.
I was never a huge fan, like, because when I was looking for healing spells as a paladin, I did see aid, and like it didn't seem particularly for like a caster like a paladin that is only like a half caster, where you really don't have those higher slots to burn that way, and particularly with a paladin where you maybe want to be using those for smites. I just never really saw the particular strength of aid there. Maybe if I was like a cleric and worked differently, I would imagine it'd probably work a lot better.
I mean, really, realistically, if you're a cleric and you drop like a 5th level, that's every person is getting 25 extra hit points. Like that's considerable, you know. But that's the highest level spell slot that a paladin's going to get.
Yeah, and you only get one.
You don't want to use that on healing people. Forget that. You want to be bashing some demon skulls in with your 5th level smite.
Well, fun fact, like by the time you have a 5th level, I'm not going to get into the nerdy technicals of smart paladin smite. Let's go on to the next one.
You can 5th level smite, can't you?
You can, but by the time you have a 5th level spell, you have your improved divine smite, and your smite caps out at 5d8 radiant damage, so you can only do a 4th level smite or a 3rd level smite if it's against a fiend or undead.
Oh, okay, see. So, interesting. Okay, so you can still use those higher slots, but you won't be able to get any additional damage.
Yeah, there's no point in using
a 4th and a 5th will get you the same amount of damage when you have the improved.
Yeah,
I get you.
And even a 3rd if it's against a fiend or an undead, because you get the additional d8 then for them being a fiend or undead.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why I took Destructive Wave as my 5th level spell when I was a paladin.
It's a pretty cool spell, to be fair.
It's very cool. The next change up we have is the attack action. And I think we may have talked about this last week, but it's good to go over it again. So now, when you take the attack action, and it's specifically, equipping weapons between attacks, you can equip or unequip one weapon before or after each attack you make as part of this action, even if it's with an unarmed strike. So if you're like a monk and you happen to use like daggers or something, you can do like your unarmed strike, punch someone, and then as part of that action, when you punch someone, you can, like, when you're bringing your hand back, you can draw a dagger, and then maybe with your second attack you can attack them with the dagger, and then after that attack you can put the dagger away and you have a bare fist again.
This is something that that would have been very helpful for Liam O'Brien playing Vax.
Oh dear God, yeah.
I've talked about this before, about how I think technically rules on paper, Vax shouldn't have worked quite as well as he did. Like he would always just go dagger, dagger, dagger on any given turn.
He also shouldn't have been able to use that Dragon Slayer longsword.
Yeah, but he was Oh, sure. Wait, was it Percy used the Dragon Slayer longsword? I thought.
He did, and
it's a dex weapon.
He used it as a dex weapon. It was not a dex weapon. It
wasn't. No, it's a longsword.
Yeah. And then he just like let it fly with Vax, and then that was horrific for any dragon you're fighting, because flying hasted rogue paladin with a Dragon Slayer's longsword.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I talked before about how like what was the other thing he did? There was something he did. Oh, it was his like ability to throw daggers and use sharpshooter. Like of the 3 sharpshooter abilities, only 2 of them actually work with daggers and stuff like that. But so if Vax starts off a round of combat, right, and in that round of combat draws 2 daggers, right, which he's allowed to do as an interaction. Yeah. And he also had dual wielding, I think, as well towards the end. So he'd be able to draw 2 weapons once, which is fine. First round of combat, draw 2 weapons. And you go dagger, dagger.
Yeah.
You don't have an interaction to draw another one. But as per this rule, he would be able to do it, because he goes to make an attack, draw an attack. He goes to make an attack, draw an attack, attack, draw an attack. So he would actually be able to do dagger, dagger is legitimized by this UA rule.
Oh man, this really makes me want to play like a fighter with 4 different magic swords.
But basically what Wabu was playing.
Kinda, actually, yeah.
He is like I keep making this comparison.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
He is a Swiss Army knife. He's a turtle with like, he's a pair of swords, and he has Dawnheart, and then he has his new dragon. He's like 4 different swords.
And like, none of them are not powerful either.
Oh yeah, and like, but based on the situation, he will literally because he has the dual wielding thing, you're allowed to draw or stow 2 weapons. I allow for you to stow 1 and then draw another to swap them out with that ability. I don't think it's technically how rules are written, but I'm okay with it. He'll just be mid fight, and he'll take a whole round of actions, attack everybody, and it'll cool. At the end of my turn, I stow this sword and I draw this other one, and I'm like, okay, because he's getting ready for something else to attack.
He'll literally change weapon every single round.
Yeah. I picture him like I
picture his turtle shell looking like a Beyblade made of sword handles.
I was going to go towards Attack on Titan, where they have to refresh their blades every now and again, so they'll discard the old blades and they'll pop in the new one, pull out the fresh sharp blades.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this though. This feels like a good evolution of the existing interaction feature.
It feels natural, because like draw cuts have always been a thing for people who use like swords or knives or anything. Like that's like your archetypal like samurai thing, where like in the anime where he like draws the sword so fast and slashes the guy, then puts it back in the scabbard, and you hear that like when it closes, and then he slides in half.
Yeah. Only then does the blood start shooting out.
Yeah. It's I love that shit though. I absolutely adore that. But
There's
yeah,
that great
big
scene,
fan.
a similar scene in Full Metal where Edward tries to charge the Fuhrer with a spear, and he charges him, but he stops just short of him. And Edward thinks, "Yeah, I could have done it, but I didn't." And then the Fuhrer is like, "Good job, you missed though." And Edward's like, "What?" And only after the Fuhrer walks away does the head of the spear just like fall off. And only then does he realize the Fuhrer was holding his sword. And he's like, when did he draw his sword? He didn't even see him draw the sword. He would draw cut so fast he didn't even realize. It's cool.
It's sick. I'm a big fan of that. The next one we have then is the banishment spell, which in my opinion I think has gotten like a minor nerf.
It has. Well, okay. Yes and no. It's like, it's an interesting one, right? So
It's well,
I love
it's
banishment. Let me just throw it out there.
uh,
I love banishment as a spell.
I know why you love banishment because otherwise you ain't killing Wabu.
Yeah, well, that's that. No, but I think banishment is just a cool spell.
Mm.
I particularly here's one thing, all right? So the way it works now is you attempt to send a creature within range, not playing resistance attack must succeed a charisma saving throw, transport it to a harmless demi-plane. The target can willingly fail the save. Pretty much all of that, more or less, as things worked before, right?
Yeah.
While in the demi-plane, you're incapacitated. That's the same. At the end of each of your turns, you can repeat the saving throw, ending the spell on a success. And then when the spell ends, the target reappears in the space it left or in the nearest unoccupied space to that place.
Yeah.
That's different because previously, if you got banished, you were banished until the concentration of the banisher was broken. But now you get to repeat that every turn. Here's why I fall down on this because another thing as well. Oh yeah, so if they do kind of do the same thing, but not quite. So if the spell lasts on a target for 1 minute and the target is an aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend, the target doesn't return. It is instead transported to a realm located on a plane associated with its creature type. So that's fine. It's kind of a rewording and
Yeah.
a more a stricter look at the idea that if you're not from this plane, you just get sent back to your other plane. The problem is that if you're fighting like mid to higher level fiends, aberrations, whatever, a lot of them have magic resistance, meaning you're rolling advantage. So even if you manage to successfully banish them initially, they're still repeating the save every single turn with advantage, and there's a very high likelihood that they're going to eventually get back. As the spell exists now, I like it because it means you're more likely to accomplish that task of there's a demon, let's send it back to where it came from, banish, and now all we have to do is protect the cleric until he holds concentration for a full minute, and when he does, that bigger demon is gone, you know? This means I would see it being very, very unlikely that you would reach that minute in most circumstances in order to banish any mid to higher level being, you know?
Yeah, but I do feel that most of the time when banishment is used in like a combat situation, because like most of the time you're going to banish something in a combat situation, in that they what I've seen as well from most like in my own play as well as like watching stuff like Critical Role, High Rollers, whatever D&D show, when banishment is used by players, it's generally they'll pick something that is being a problem or needs to be removed so they can kill everything else, keep that thing banished, and then they go, okay, this is where he is. All right, everyone circle around this square, and in like 10 seconds, I'm going to drop concentration, and it'll pop back, and then we all just smash it. And that's what I've mostly seen banishment used, and I think that's a really good use of banishment personally. I do feel like this new change is maybe slightly more balanced, because like it can be very, very difficult sometimes to break something's concentration, particularly if it's got like really high con and it's got like advantage on like concentration checks if it's like a warcaster or something. Sometimes that can be very, very difficult unless you've maybe like a mage slayer on your side to like kind of counteract that, where their damage imposes disadvantage on the concentration check. So I think it maybe in a way it's slightly more balanced, but I think overall it is a nerf.
I think perhaps actually this is maybe better for players, worse for DMs, because almost no monsters have Mage Slayer as a thing that's built, or not, sorry, Warcaster built into them. Virtually no monsters that I can think of off the top of my head have the ability where they have advantage on concentration checks. It's just not a thing that appears in most stat blocks. Whereas a lot of players do tend to take Warcaster.
Yeah.
themselves, because it's a great feat to have.
I'm just checking
So
one thing because I recently built an encounter with a mage and a mage monster, and I want to see if they have anything similar. Please carry on.
yeah, so if you're a player and you're casting banishment, it means that I would say as it exists now, right?
Yeah.
If you're a player and you cast banishment and your job is to keep concentration until the creature is gone for good, then you can take Warcaster and it's very beneficial to you. Um, you actually don't have that now because concentration is only part of it. It requires you keeping concentration, but also it requires uh the enemy not saving 10 times in a row,
Yes.
which is tricky.
Yeah, that in itself is is a difficult thing. Like you have to be lucky 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas previously all you had to do is actually, Joe, it's probably actually worse for players. I'm getting ready. It's complicated. It's actually probably worse for players, so it's nerfed on the player side, I think. Because for you to, yeah, if you're a player with this rule, and you're trying to cast a spell, you need to not only maintain concentration, but you also need to have the enemy fail 10 times in a row.
Yeah.
Which is something that is unlikely on higher level enemies because they're probably going to have that magic resistance ability, which gives them advantage. With the way the rule used to be, all you had to do was maintain concentration. So it's a harder to use spell to reach that higher level effect where you actually just banish them permanently.
But like if you can get like 3 turns out of a banishment, I think that's pretty worth it.
Yeah.
Because like
I know, I don't.
like,
I just like banishment.
Yeah, oh no, I totally get you. But like if you banish like the tank or the healer, like you suddenly set the cat among the pigeons. Like as soon as the party is like, if you have a dedicated healer and that is part of your like strategy when you're fighting for like, yeah, we're just gonna go ham, and if we take damage, like the healer's got us, we're good for this, and then you just go by healer, and now you're just wrecking the team. Or if if you're a team with like mostly squishies and like one tank, and you banish the tank, and now suddenly like a bard, a wizard, and I don't know, like a warlock have to like tank like an Etten or something. Like it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, true. Don't get me wrong. I think this is a very good. It's a well constructed spell. I just think that there's a lot working against anyone who wants to cast it. In order to make it to reach that higher level effect. But I get what you're saying though. Maybe that's like if you get that high, maybe if they fail 10 times and if you manage to maintain concentration for the minute, then.
But like if they do that, you like silvery barbs.
Silvery barbs, you can give them disadvantage.
It's a reaction. You just like, okay,
You can't see them though. It's on a different plane.
Yeah, but they succeed, so they pop back, and then you go, okay, reactionary, they succeeded on that, silvery barbs.
But if they succeed, you already.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, they're already back at that point, and the spell has ended. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm complaining about it too much. Look, it's actually a fine spell. I don't think this is going to break the game or anything like that. I just think that it's putting the onus of the value in banishment as a spell on how many rounds can I just keep this person away for. Whereas previously that was part of it, but also it was about maybe I can just get rid of this demon or whatever it is once and for all and send it back to its own plane. Whereas now it's very front heavy on that, just get rid of them for a couple of rounds to ease up the combat thing instead of the other thing, which I felt like was a 50-50 split previously. Also, there's a change in focus as well, where previously if someone got banished, it was a case of everybody get that wizard now, we need to break his concentration, and that was like to me that was a cool rallying moment in the party to like go, we got to get our fighter back, he just got banished, let's all attack the wizard. Whereas now it's like I don't think there'll be as much of a rush to break that concentration. You might just leave the fighter make his saves every turn, you know.
I still feel like I still feel like the party, like the second you remove a resource from the party, they will the one thing that will hard focus a party is if you get rid of one of them and go, this guy did it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. After that we have got the grappled condition. The the big change to grapples here. Because previously,
You're just going through the change log and not through the actual UA thingy, right?
yeah, because we've covered most of that. Most of the ones that are already in there that haven't been changed are stuff that we've already
Okay.
covered in the experts classes video. Go watch that video.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to give a shout out that Bark skin is amazing now, and I love it.
Oh yeah, I know. We gushed about that on the. I think
Yeah.
we talked about some of these in actually last week's one as well. And yeah, Bark Skin is really really good now.
So I love Bark skin. Bark skin was the spell I always wanted to be cool, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And now it's a very cool spell, and I would absolutely see myself taking it.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Really good for a druid. Like, and I love that they've gone with like temporary hit points as a measure of tankiness rather than like armor class, which I think it was before.
There is a big focus going forward with a lot of abilities. I think since like maybe since Tasha's, maybe a little bit before that, where you see a lot that focuses on temp HP, and I'm for it. I like it.
Yeah, I think
they don't stack, but they give you nice boosts, and
it's easy as
you know you can feel you can feel cool about what you're. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So just go back to the old grapple condition. So at basically the changes are stuff that's all been added to it. What it originally had was you were grappled and your speed was 0. That's basically all the grappled really did to you. It didn't really it didn't impose any kind of problems with your attacks or anything. Now what we've got is you've disadvantage on attacks versus anyone else anyone who isn't the person grappling you. You have disadvantage on attack rolls against them because the grappler is holding you back. But if you go to attack the grappler, you have no you've no impairment, no penalties. Thank you. No penalties to your impairment. You've no penalties to your attack rolls.
It works.
Yeah, I know, but that's more like never mind. And now grapplers can move a grappled target, but they are now slowed, which is a new condition we've talked about before. To recap it in brief, your movement, the cost of your movement is doubled. So for every foot you move, it costs another foot. You have disadvantage on attack rolls. And attack rolls against you have advantage. So if someone is grappling you and moving you, if the rest of your party are trying to help you out, they have advantage on attacking the person who is grappling and moving you, which is pretty cool. And let me see here.
I think we've always like that's the thing I feel like people bring up an awful lot about trying to drag someone somewhere or force someone into a portal or off a ledge or something like that, and you try to grapple them, but there was never a rule before about I want to drag him over and throw him into that pit right now. It wasn't there, and I would always kind of rule something similar, like if you beat him in the thing, you can move, but you're at half speed.
Like contested athletics checks or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I like that they're giving us real options for that now.
And I do actually really like. There's one small caveat on, if you're a grappler moving a target and you're slowed, and that is unless the grappled creature is 2 size categories smaller than you or is tiny. So if you grapple a fairy, you're not under any penalties. You can just grab that thing with your hand and run for the hills.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and it makes sense as well. Like that you wouldn't be struggling with something that is like. If a giant who's like size huge or whatever grabs a hold of you, they shouldn't be penalized for just picking a person up in their hand like a doll and throwing them somewhere.
If a storm giant grabs you, it shouldn't be like, oh, so heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, half movement.
Oh no. After that, we've got guidance. I think guidance actually has been like it's I would call it a buff, but it's basically how a lot of people had been home ruling guidance anyway. Guidance is now a reactionary spell, and it can only be it's a bit of a buff and a bit of a nerf, right? Because it's a reactionary spell, which is great. So now you can cast it as a reaction when someone fails a check to give them that D4, and now you could basically kind of know whether or not your guidance is gonna potentially tip the scales. You have to do it within 10 feet. Which is a bit unfortunate, but
it was it 30 or something last time?
I think so. No, you had to touch a creature last time.
Oh, it's a touch.
It was a touch spell last time. But where I think it's a slight nerf is that previously with guidance, if you just knew there was something coming up, you could just hand on someone's shoulder. I give you guidance for the next check, and you can use that before or after the check. Like you could roll it with your D20, or after you'd rolled your D20, you could then roll your D4. Now guidance can only be used when they fail the check. It's like a reactionary boom, you fail the check.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like guidance has been improved all around in my mind. Like, okay, so touch to 10 feet is a very obvious boost. You can do more range, yeah. I think, like you said, people were already kind of using it as a reaction, even though it is an action. If you weren't in combat, it would come up the whole time. Oh, make a strength check to break down the door, and you roll and you add your strength, and you're like, oh, and then someone across the table goes guidance,
Yeah.
and then you just roll a d4. They used it reactionarily, even though it was an action to do so. So I mean, it just makes sense to make it a reaction now, and it makes sense that like it's a case of when you fail, you get to add it
Yeah.
on because there's no point in you wasting the spell
get-
if someone else has already succeeded on the check, you know.
I guess it probably it makes it more combat effective as well, really, because like in combat now, if someone like say it's like a grapple check,
Yeah.
or something like that, and is it correct me guidance a bit is it just ability checks or
Guidance, as it was previously, is one ability check of your choice.
saving throws are not ability checks, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fine. But like, you could use it for like a grapple check if you've like two people grappling and someone fails it, and they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
you're gonna fail a grapple guidance, now you win. I'm like, yeah, no, I think overall it's been quite good and it buffed, but like,
I wanna check something here because
check away.
I think they tweaked it since the last release of guidance that we had, because I think they made it like you couldn't use it more than until the next short rest or something like that, and that isn't appearing in the current version.
Yes.
Where are you? Oh god, this document is so bloody long.
And that's
I
why,
get it. You
yeah.
got lots of feats, wizard. All right, stop showing off. Uh, okay, I'm finally on G. Here we go. Here we go. Yes. Okay. Here we go. So, it's the same creature failing the ability check. Creature reroll a d4. Potential check into success. So they have actually taken this out, which means it's been buffed again. So in the first UA, we got an expert said the additional 3 lines at the end was once a creature has rolled the die for this spell, that creature can't benefit from the spell again until the creature finishes a long rest. So it was also a once a day thing.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight feels very limiting that you get
Yeah.
that you get a D4 once a day, whereas I think the limitation is still quite. Oh, actually, do you know what it was? It was 30 feet previously. So now they're like, look, you've got to be close by, but if you have a reaction, you can give the person a D4. I feel like that's very as it is right now in this current version.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of it. I think like the next one we have in the list, if I'm correct, is the influence action, which was a source of much controversy in the D&D community when it was when it originally came out. I saw in particular, Mark Humes, the DM for High Rollers, was very much not a fan of how it said. It basically says if you succeed this, they just do what you want. And he was really not a fan of that. And they have since clarified that it's not mind control, and the characters won't certainly do this. But like he brought up the point to like attaching DCs to stuff like this. I think we ourselves weren't big fans of it. We just kind of went like, this is just something we do as DMs anyway and account for naturally in the flow. And it was like, it had like 9 parts. I remember because it was also a week where I was the host, and it had like 9.
I have it here. It's like influence responses, and it's like indifferent creature response DC 10, DC 20, friendly creature DC 10, 20, hostile creature DC 10, DC 20, and what they will do based on each of those potential successes. And then you have to decide whether they were indifferent. It was, I think at the time we pointed out that like everything that was in that in terms of deciding are they hostile, indifferent, or how do they feel, choosing what type of interaction makes sense, whether persuasion or deception or whatever. Animal handling is also here, and then trying to decide what the outcome is based on all this. It's literally a page worth of the experts, the expert classes UA, for what we already did in a second and a half. When someone says, "Can I try and ask the shopkeeper if he'll give me a discount?" and I go, "How does the shopkeeper feel about them? Are they in a position to offer this? Like the person?" And then I go, "Okay." Calculating, okay, DC 16 persuasion check. Done. I did all that with no page-long document.
Yeah.
And we just decided. They seem to have stripped away some of it now.
They have made a couple. Yeah, it's a lot of streamlining. But there are some like significant changes. So previously, with the 3 conditions, there's indifferent, and they call out that with indifferent, basically every NPC is indifferent to the party unless they're like a friend or family or someone who's close to them. And indifferent doesn't mean like that they're going to be rude or standoffish. It just means like you're indifferent. Like indifferent. Like you are to anyone you just like walk past on the street that you don't know. Like, so
Like someone coming up
yeah,
to you and going, "Sorry, do you have the time?" And you go, yeah, it's 4:10," and you're like, "Cool, thanks." Like it's
yeah,
just the most baseline neutral
yeah.
interaction possible. Yeah.
I nearly feel like it should be called civil or something instead.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
You know, but the
Yeah.
big change. So so there was indifferent, there was friendly, and then there was
Hostile.
hostile. Thank you, Jesus. I nearly said. I know what I was going for a second ago. But they said before
Mean.
mean, yeah, salty,
Oh,
sour,
bitter.
sour. I love sour as a
Yeah.
descriptor for a person. But yeah, what they said before was you can decide based on how friendly or Connor, help me.
Indifferent or
Indifferent,
hostile.
friendly or hostile they are to the PCs, whether or not they get advantage or disadvantage. Or they were like, you may impose a higher DC if they're asking something
Yeah.
of a different creature, and even maybe impose like disadvantage as well. And then they said the opposite for like a friendly creature. Now they just go, yeah, whether regardless of the DM deciding if a creature is hostile. I see. Remember that time? If a creature is hostile to the party has disadvantage on the charisma check associated with whatever they're asking, and if they're friendly to the party, they have advantage. That's just raw now. They have advantage, disadvantage, which I do and don't kind of like. You know what I mean? Like, I understand why they do it. I can see the logic behind it, and I can understand why they're doing that. So I kind of agree with it, and I'm okay with it. But at the same time, I don't like having that option of choice being taken away from the DM to give advantage or disadvantage. I would rather they just say set a higher or lower DC.
Like, yeah, I mean, like again, that's. I honestly don't know what they're going for with the influence action. I don't know why they feel the need to include it. It's an ability check like any other, as far as I'm concerned. It just happens during a social interaction. And for me, social interactions playing at a table are so fluid and so many variables. Why are we trying to pigeonhole this into a type of action that we can
Yeah.
define in a set of rules or a grid or a flow chart that people have to run through? Why not just have it like very naturally be like, hey, here's the shopkeeper. You rescued his son from the goblin. You want to know, can you get a discount on a sword? Yeah, maybe you don't even need a persuasion check, or maybe you can try, and I'll give you a rescue his son. It's just very sensible like that in my mind. I don't know why we're trying to make interactions. Stop trying to make interactions a thing.
So I have
Influence action, sorry.
no, you're so I have an idea why they're doing this, and it's something that not Perkins, yeah, Chris Perkins. That's something that Chris Perkins said. Is that right? I'm not having a stroke or something, am I?
Do you mean Perkins or do you mean
Perkins, the DM, Chris Perkins. That's it. That's his name, right?
yeah, Chris Perkins, acting, original
Yeah,
acting.
yeah. Thank you.
You're not talking about
Yeah.
Crawford, Jeremy
No,
Crawford.
yeah,
no?
the guy with the cap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cap, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Perkins. He was sorry, I'm losing my mind today. He was talking in a previous 1D&D video, or maybe it was talking about what's coming in 2024 for the new player's handbook, and the new Dungeon Master's Guide or whatever. But he was saying that they're trying to make it easier for people to get into DMing, and I'd imagine the reason they are laying this out and laying out a system for this is not for the likes of me and you who have been DMing for quite a while and we're able to do this easily and quickly. I think we may have even said this when we were reading it originally. But what this is for like a new DM who's when like a player talks to a shopkeeper and goes, oh hey, can I have like a 20% discount on this sword? And they're like, oh god, how would they react, and how do I set a DC, and so that kind of maybe like early
Yeah,
days.
maybe, yeah.
It's the only reason I can see for, because like we're saying, for everyone else who's been playing for a while, this is an almost reactionary thing for us to be like, yeah, DC 15.
Yeah, okay. I guess I see that. There is some stuff here about like setting a DC. If you look at the bottom of page 21 there,
Yeah.
it says setting a DC says minimum DC check is 15, or the creature's intelligence score, whichever is higher. That's interesting.
I actually missed that. Apologies.
But again, that's kind of a weird one that I guess they're trying to say like, look, if it's I mean, anything. If you think the DC that you're trying to set would be less than 15, maybe are they trying to say there's no point in even asking for a check? Like if you go to someone and say, "Hey," they're like, "Hey, can we? I don't know. Can I use the bathroom in the back of your store here, Mr. Shopkeeper?"
Yeah.
If it's a case of you think to yourself, "Yeah, they probably just need a 10 to convince them of this." Is there a point in even asking them for a roll if the DC is only going to be 10? You know, and like there's way more aspects to that in terms of like, is it really that fun or interesting or whatever? Is there a good story for you to like have your player roll a persuasion check to use the bathroom? But yeah, I guess that's kind of what they're implying here. I just I don't like the idea of setting strict DCs. They already have the DC guideline for ability checks where it's like 10 is like very easy, 15 is easy, 20 is like moderate, is like hard, 25 is very hard, and 30 is impossible, whatever it is. Like my kind of motto with pretty much anything is I would never ask you for less than a 10 for any ability check, really. Because at that point, I'm like,
10 is trivial.
Look, 10 is trivial. 10 is something I will ask you for if it's something very simple, but like I will never ask for less than a 10.
Yeah, like at that, like I'm even at like at the point of asking for like a 10. I'm like, why am I even asking you to roll dice? Really? I guess I'm just kind of giving you the chance to fail, but it should be something you should succeed at anyway. And like as a thing, I think it was Matt Colville or Ginny Dye said it, but they were like if you're asking a player to roll a dice or something, and it's something you are expecting them to succeed at, why are you making a dice roll? Why not just make that a beat in the story? Like if it's something you were expecting them to succeed at and do as part of the story you're telling, why not just make that, like, just go, hey, this is there, and then when they go, can I jump it, you just go, yes, because you were that strong or that fast or athletic or...
Yeah, and like I get that as well. I always feel there's a bit of a pull, a bit of a push and pull between do I ask for a dice check because rolling dice is kind of what the game's about, or do I just let you do the thing? Because I feel like there's a positives and negatives to it both ways. If you pick up your dice and go, hey, that boulder's in the way, can I try and push it out of the way? And presenting the dice to me going, can I roll this? And then I just go, you just push it out of the way. I still feel like there's a little bit of deflation, like, oh, cool, but I don't get to do anything because I didn't roll the dice, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a, and that's not a thing necessarily. Make sure your players have fun rolling dice. Rolling plastic shapes is fun, and your players enjoy it. So make sure plastic shapes are. But I feel like that's a real thing, because players do sometimes pick up a dice and present it like, may I do the thing that we came here to do?
Please, sir.
Please, sir, may I roll this geometric shape made of polymer? And then you have to be like, you know, but if you tell them, great, they got the thing they wanted, you know, you don't have to roll, you can do that easily. And I do feel like there's going to be some very obvious situations like, you know, can I walk upstairs? You know, like, obviously I'm not going to make you roll anything just to walk upstairs.
Yeah.
But like, unless the stairs is a mimic.
But like if someone with 20 strength says, can I pick up a barrel? You're not going to make them make a strength check.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And like, again, they might... There's always that kind of like push and pull where like they might go, hey, can I try and lift the barrel?
Yeah.
And you just go, you have 20 strength, you can absolutely lift the barrel.
Yeah, and I think that's where you can kind of like, you can be like, no, dude, like, you're ridiculous. You're like you're like a physical god in this world. You can kind of, there's some things you can just do, like, and that makes kind of, and that can make a player feel like really good about their character and stuff as well. But at the same time, if someone presents it like that to me, where it's like, can I roll to do this? I'd be like, yeah, Joe, 50-50, I think. Like you saying, like, it's fun to roll dice and do well. Like if that player's like, can I lift this? And in your head you go, like, logically you should just be able to do it, but you just decide, yeah, fuck it, roll anyway. Like, and they like crit. But
then they get
a
like, one, and you're like, oh, wow,
yeah, you know, it's like, oh, you're real strong, I swear.
I just feel like the players don't feel like they're proactively doing something unless they roll the dice, because that's what they do. They roll dice to, they want to do something, they roll a dice to. And if they're not rolling the dice, then they feel like even if you give them the thing, they don't feel like they've proactively earned it because they haven't actually done anything other than ask, can I have this? And you've gone, yes, you can. So it's, you get the reward, but it doesn't all feel earned if you don't have, I hate my mic, if you don't earn the, but that's what this little shock thingy is for. I got a new mic, by the way, folks.
Yeah.
That's what this little shock thingy is for. Yeah, so you don't always feel like...
Just checking, did I put that on my one?
You don't always get the... Sorry, I have to keep adjusting mine now.
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't always get the satisfaction if you don't if you don't feel like you earned it. So yeah, that's the thing. But also, like, there's something else I wanted to say about that, like, as well.
Dice is pretty linked to player agency as well, in my mind. Like,
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and like, again, I just feel like that there's a reward system, an unofficial social reward system when you're at the table, where A player is like, I'm a player, I roll dice, and you tell me if those dice are good enough to get the thing. Whereas if you skip the entire middle part and you just go, can I have the thing? And you go, here's the thing. Then they're happy to have it, I'm sure. But there's a mixed bag of emotions there where, like, there's a little bit of me that just thinks, like, oh, I would have liked to roll these colorful dice I paid 35 something, like 35 quid.
Yeah.
That'd be nice to use the things I paid money for. But yeah, there was some other point I wanted to make as well about like dice rolling, and I think potentially Mark Humes and Ginny D as well were actually both not in favor of the idea of ones being instant fails and 20s being instant successes.
They were part of that kind of cohort of people who had that opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I like that. I've always run it that way, to be honest. And
I don't like it in this though. I don't like it in the influence section, because like I just to be fair to still say, it's not mind control, but like I feel like if a player rolls a nat 20 and they're trying to convince someone of something ridiculous, and they're like, oh, well, now it has to work.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I just flat out, if someone says to me, can I just convince this shopkeeper to sign over the deed to his shop? I just would say no, because no reasonable person would ever accept that. I don't care. It's like, for talk's sake, you guys are quite friendly with Ben, who runs the Low End Place Tavern in Temerai. And you guys have worked with him. He's worked for you. You've had quite a few adventures that he has been adjacent to or a part of. So if you just walked in and goes, Ben, I want you to give me your tavern, I would just tell you no, because even though he likes you guys as much as Ben can like anyone, he's a bit gruff. He would never reasonably agree to just sign over the deed to his tavern just at the drop of a hat. Like, that's just not how things work. So I would just say no, you can't roll that. Like, I think for me, it's more about the ones for me. And do you know what it is? I had a rogue. Dan played a rogue in our first campaign who had reliable talent and a plus 16 or something stupid to his stealth check. And I'm like, late in the campaign, I had ones mean you failed, because I want there to always be a 20% chance. No, sorry, not a 20th. Sorry, so like a 5% chance that you can fail. Because in my mind, again, we're talking about that, like I earned it, that reward thing. If it doesn't matter, if you have a plus 16 or plus 17 to your stealth because proficiency and double proficiency and whatever else, and even if you roll a 1, you're gonna get an 8. Like, if first of all, it just means that you're gonna almost always be able to stealth places, but also it means, like, does that take away the I earned it factor? Is there a point in asking for you to roll other than the psychology of I rolled twice, I did something, and now I've earned this thing? Or does it matter that even though you rolled a 1, you still got the thing, because a 1 plus your modifiers is now 18, and this guy, you still succeed against this, so you managed to stealth away. I don't know, that I wanted there to be an aspect where the possibility of failure is always on the table, because that for me is the idea of the risk. And even though it's a very small risk, it can still happen. Yeah, because again, otherwise it's just I decide to do this and it automatically happens. But I didn't roll my shiny shapes, and I also didn't, other than say I stealth, Yeah. I don't know. It gets weird and muddled with some of the. Again, I like the idea that there's always a possibility that it can fail. There's always a possibility something can go wrong. That's the risk of the game, and I enjoy that part of it. And I also enjoy the fact that, like, even though in some circumstances it might be a very, very long shot to get something, I still think, do you know what? There is a slim chance this would work. And in that case, I would ask you. And then if you get a nat 20, I would say, yes, you get that. Yeah. But I wouldn't ask you to roll if you asked me to do something that I think is just completely unreasonable. I don't care if you roll a 32. Like, if there's 2 guards and they're looking at a door, at a single door, and they're staring right at it, and you're like, can I walk through the door and walk right past these guys with stealth? And you rolled a 32, I'm going to say no, because they're staring directly at the door. You can't open it right in front of their eyes and just walk by them without being seen. It's physically impossible. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a rant.
It's cool. Do you want to chat about the next few things?
Let's keep it rolling, because I'm taking up time here.
So, like, next it's totally fine, because next is the light weapon property, and from what I can see, and feel free to correct me on this, Conor, but I don't believe there's actually been any changes to it, even though it's included in the change log. Because I have the experts one open here as well, and it Yeah, it seems like it's pretty much the exact same.
Let me just double check something because I think that looks. Okay, you look at the most recent one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call it the previous one. You tell me if the wording is different. When you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a weapon in one hand, you can make one extra attack as part of the same action. That extra attack must be made with a different light weapon in your other hand, and you don't add the ability modifier to the extra attack's damage.
They've shifted things around in the syntax. That's all they've done.
But it's all still the same so far.
Yeah, when you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon in one hand and have a light weapon in the other hand, you can make one extra attack as part of the same action. They've just cleaned up the language.
And the extra attack, you don't add the ability modifier. Yep. You can only do once per turn. That's all still there.
Yep.
Yeah. So it seems like
the same example. They even word for word the same example.
Yeah, so it seems more or less the same. I really love the light weapon property.
I'm a big fan of it now. Yeah, I think it's one of the best changes they've brought about in terms of like non-character related, non specifically to your like class or stuff related stuff. I'm actually quite a fan of, like, I suppose the long rest stuff is, some of it is more like clarification, and like including everything in that a long rest does get rid of, and other bits of it I actually really like in terms of what it clarifies. So, long rest, as we understand it currently, is like most players who don't have something like an Elven Trance, where they only need like 4 hours of sleep, or like Warforged, who just don't sleep. You can basically rest for 8 hours. You regain all your you gain all your hit points. You regain, currently as it's written, half the hit dice you used if you used any hit dice during that adventuring day. And as well, you lose, I believe, half your exhaustion levels when you long rest, isn't it?
No, just one level, I believe.
That's just one level. Yeah, this is a different thing. I'm thinking like a Bob World Builder video or something where he was talking about a new exhaustion system. But you lose a level of exhaustion, and like you'll regain obviously like any like ability features you have that reset on rests or long rests specifically. Right now the updates change to it. They say you regain all hit points, you regain all hit dice, and you've your max HP restored. Your ability scores are restored, so if any of your ability scores are reduced, they return to normal. Your exhaustion decreases by 1. And then there's an interesting bit of wording that I like here. After you finish a long rest, you must wait at least 16 hours before starting a new one. So that
I did change that from before. Previously, it said you can't benefit from more than one long rest in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
I get why they changed it, just to be like, because if it's still within the same day, can I go to sleep again? But like 16 hours is basically a full day, start to finish, of like adventuring and whatever else you do. So it makes sense that after that time you're kind of expected to go to sleep then.
Yeah, and there's also some nice clarification in there about interrupting the rest. So it says a long rest is stopped by the following interruptions: combat, casting a spell other than a 0 level spell, which is a cantrip. So that's cool. I'm not sure if that was included previously.
It was a separate part. It said if a long rest is interrupted by combat or by 1 hour of walking, which I think is still there.
It's still there.
Or physical exertion.
I meant specifically the cantrip.
It does say casting spells, so I think they've allowed you to cast cantrips now, which makes sense. They're kind of relatively simple, so you shouldn't be too complex or whatever, shouldn't be stopping you.
And then there's this nice little bit of clarification as well regarding how you rule that rest in terms of like after, maybe if it's broken up by combat, they have the combat and then they go back to rest, how that whole process works. So if the rest was at least 1 hour long before interruption, you gain the benefits of a short rest, which is something that I kind of just did with my guys in my campaign anyway. If they all got at least an hour in, I'd be like, okay, you can have a short rest, because that's the time a short rest takes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I do like that they're just including that raw now as well. Like that, like rules is written, as long as you get the hour in, you have a short rest. If you don't get that in, then you don't get the short rest. You have to restart the long rest immediately. And they basically say if you do restart the long rest immediately after an interruption, the rest requires 1 additional hour to finish it.
Previously, they didn't allow you to restart it in the first UA. I'm both open here, so I'm jumping back and forth. The previous one didn't have anything about allowing you to restart the process, other than just like, I guess, going back to hour 1. But they just say now it takes an extra hour because you got interrupted, but you can continue that long rest if there is time to do so, or you kill whatever interrupted your sleeping or whatever.
Good. Do you want to take the magic action, Conor?
Okay, sure. Magic action. When you take the magic action, you can cast a spell that is a casting time of an action. Surprising. Or if you use a feature or a magic a magic action to be activated. So this is kind of like the use magic item option or the cast spell option or the cast, but rolled into like one action. If you cast a spell that has a casting time of 1 minute or longer, you must take the magic action on each of your turns for that casting, and you must maintain concentration while you're doing so. This is kind of like if you're like in combat or whatever, or I guess it kind of clarifies something that was kind of already kind of there, but was never fully written out. Is like if someone says, I'm going to start casting Identify on this thing and take 10 minutes to do so as a ritual, it was kind of assumed that for the 10 minutes you're busy and you can't do anything else, but this puts it to paper and kind of clarifies. Concentration, if your concentration is broken, the spell fails, but you don't expend the spell slot. No.
That's pretty generous, I think.
I think it's very generous. I think it's fair.
I would kind of nearly like it though if you did lose the spell slot, because that feels like more consequential. But I do also still like, like you, because you don't complete the casting of the spell, the slot is not used.
I think like realistically, the two scenarios are going to be casting a spell that takes that much time. The one scenario primarily is going to be outside of combat. It's quiet. I want to put up Liam's tiny hut, or I want to cast Identify, or I want to do whatever. It takes a minute or 10 minutes, or however long it takes. So now I got to sit here and work on this for that time. Realistically, if you're outside of combat, unless the DM has some ambush planned or something, you're not going to get interrupted. So you're almost certainly going to finish. The only time you might get interrupted is, again, if the DM has something like an ambush planned or something you weren't expecting that does interrupt you. Or if you try to do like something that takes a minute to cast in combat, which previously we would have never done. I still don't think we would even.
And it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to do something cool now, where you put the wizard in a what's it called? It's a spell that puts you in a protective sphere.
It looks resilient sphere.
I think so. Yeah. And then like I think it says physical objects can't pass in or out. Maybe that's one. Yeah, you could put someone in that and then just maintaining concentration until they're ready, and as soon as they're spell, then they can do the thing. That would actually make for a very cool combat encounter if it was like, here's our NPC wizard companion. He can unlock the tomb door, but it takes a minute of him casting this ritual to do so.
Ooh.
And as soon as he does, the spirit awaken.
You're basically enacting horde mode, so.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. You need to do it's an escort mission.
Yeah.
You need to protect the wizard so that he can maintain concentration. And if he takes a hit from one of the undead or something, because you guys let him slip through the lines, then the wizard makes a con save and stuff. I'm gonna make that encounter. That's really cool.
No. I know that'll be fun.
I like this magic action though. Because again, it rolls.
Yeah, it's
the use magic item action and the cast spell thing all into one. That simplifies it. So yeah, I like it. I think it's really cool.
It's again like we were saying, kind of maybe with the next one we'll probably get a much more direct idea of the way it's going. But like from this one and the previous two, it does seem like they're like as much as possible streamlining and combining things into like one simple rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next up we have it's a spell actually, and it is the Prayer of Healing, and hilariously this is actually probably one of those times you were talking about in terms of like casting a spell with a long casting time, because Prayer of Healing has a 10-minute casting time, and it's generally I always think of like Prayer of Healing like I think it might be gone in the new 1D&D, but the Bard's like Song of Rest, I think it is.
Yeah, the one you cast when you're on a short rest to give people a bonus.
Yeah, like maxes out their healing or something like that.
Yes. So previously this used to be use up to 6 creatures of your choice that you can see within range, regain hit points of 2d8 plus your spellcasting mod. This is no effect on undead or constructs. It was basically, we're gonna take a short rest, or we need to get going fast. Maybe this is maybe the alternative to and because we know we need to get going fast, we don't have the hour to spend. Let's cast Prayer of Healing, and then and we get some back, at least some of our hit points, but it takes 10 minutes to do so. But up to 6 creatures was pretty good.
Yeah.
Now it's it takes the same casting time. It's still 30 feet. you utter an extended prayer of restoration. Choose a number of willing creatures equal to your spellcasting ability modifier, minimum of 1. So no longer 6 flat, but spellcasting modifier. Each of those creatures who remains within the range of the spell for the entire casting gains the benefits of a short rest, and also gains 2d8 hit points. So actually, this is kind of interesting.
That's a serious buff, because like depending on how they define the benefits of short rest, like does that mean I can roll hit dice?
Well, I mean, I would think so. If you gain the benefits of short rest, I'm assuming you
like
hit dice.
class
And I presume
features
if you're
back, hit
a wizard,
dice.
you get your spell slots and stuff as well.
Warrior gets literally, like a fighter rather, gets literally all of their stuff back.
It's all their stuff. Wizards could probably use their arcane recovery and stuff. Yeah.
Druids get their wild shape. Like this is like this has gone from like, oh, I guess that's kind of nice while we have 10 minutes maybe to chill on the way to like a boss room. This is now turned into like, we're going into something, and we've had a bit of a few couple scraps on the way. Let's take 10 minutes in prayer of healing, and now we have like hit die, we have our class features back, we have all this stuff back.
This would be like the ideal thing if you guys were like ambushed on the road, bandits took your cart mid-fight and took off, and you're like, oh, we're all injured from the fight, but we got to chase these guys down, and we do not have time to wait around for a short rest and heal up. 10 minutes, heal up fast. It's like an expedited short rest. And it also, because of the 2d8, it means you don't have to you may not even have to spend your hit dice. You might get enough of your health back on the 2d8 depending on what.
Yeah, and like this like to me really feels like a battlefield medic spell.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah, very much so.
The short rest thing, it feels like very much like, okay guys, come on, take a quick break. I'm going to cease your wounds so we can at least like fight for the next whatever's going on, you know. I'm a big fan of this change. I think it's got the same scaling as well, where when you cast it with using a spell slot 3rd level or higher, you get another d8 for each spell slot above 2nd.
Yeah, that's a really good spell.
It's like, I think that's a massive buff. Like I think it's a massive buff.
Just the range of things you can do by granting someone that short rest in 10 minutes is massive.
Like that's such a, like the short rest, like just between the hit dice and the class feature resets for certain classes, like that's such a massive spell now for your fighters, your warlocks, your wizards, because they've got the arcane recovery. I'm trying to think of who else like really benefits from like short rests, like druids to particularly like a moon druid, because they get them back on a short rest, I believe, the wild shapes.
I'd have to check to be honest.
I think so.
I can't remember, to be honest.
Maybe
some of them do. Maybe moon druids specifically do after a certain round.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm open to correction there. And we've got one that we've got just a couple more to cover, but I think we just have enough time to do it. But the next one will be really quick. It's the priest pack. So I've all the bits written out here. So in the old version, what you got was you got a backpack, a blanket, 10 candles, a tinderbox, an alms box. For if anyone doesn't know what an alm is like a charitable donation given to like a priest or a holy person. If you're part of the Christian faith of some kind, particularly like Catholicism, because the one I know most, around Christmas time in Catholicism, the priests are given alms from the community to like help them like survive, because they need.
Is it a quest for the Holy Grail, a life for Brian? When your man is like, alms for the poor, and your man's like, what are you talking about? You've already got alms.
Yeah, that's exactly that.
Sorry, I can't even do the accent. I'm laughing so much through that.
But alms box, they got 2 blocks of incense, a censer. For anyone who doesn't know what a censer is, that is the metal thing that with all the smoke in it hanging from the chains that they swing around during a Catholic mass. Vestments, which are like priest clothes. 2 days of rations and a water skin. It's actually quite a lot there, if you're being totally fair about it, and some of it probably costs like a decent amount of gold relatively for like a normal person in a D&D world. Like the 2 blocks of incense are probably expensive enough, the 10 candles, the tinder box, the alms box, that kind of stuff. Now we've got it's been slimmed down, and I think I actually prefer it more. Backpack, blanket, lamp, holy water, 7 days of rations, a robe, and a tinderbox. That feels much more like an adventuring like priest kind of archetype, whether that's your druid, your cleric, your paladin, what they would have. That feels much more ready to go, and in particular the holy water, because you can actually use that to damage things.
Oh yeah, holy water is there's a lot of really cool quote unquote like mundane items that just appear in the regular equipment list that are actually super helpful. Holy water, alchemist fire, fucking
all the acids and poisons.
The crowbar is outstanding, just advantage on all your kind of crying strength checks.
Spyglass also very handy.
Spyglass, expensive.
It cost, it blew my players' brains when I told them it cost 1,500 gold for a spyglass.
Yeah, it's insane.
For reference, same cost as a full suit of plate.
Yeah.
Cool. So, but that's the priest pack. Like I said, not really a whole bunch to say about it. I feel like it's just been slimmed down and more focused on like what an adventuring priest archetype would be like. You know, you got your tinderbox, a blanket, a backpack, so, and like robes, and like you've got your 7 days rations, which is actually, if you want to look at it this way, a massive buff. It's like nearly a 3 times buff to what the previous one had, because it only had 2.
You only had 2 days rations?
Yeah, the old priest pack, you only had 2 days rations in it. Now you've 7. Almost 7 times the buff, Conor.
I guess that they're wondering, like, is the priest?
I think that's what you had the priest not be box. So you could beg for food.
Yeah. People should be like, you could just walk around and be like, "Hi, I'm a man. Will you please give me?"
Yeah. Do you want to take resistance?
Oh yes. So actually, resistance kind of got the guidance treatment.
Yes.
So I'm gonna bring up resistance as a.
An interesting note about the difference in two. Guidance, I believe, now is only available on the Divine or Arcane spell lists, whereas Resistance is only available on Divine and Primal.
Interesting. So, did I spell that right? I did spell that right. Load for me. So previously, it was a action to cast cantrip. You touch one willing creature. Before the spell ends, the target can add a D4. Roll a d4 and add the number rolled to one saving throw of their choice. But it lasts for a minute until the first saving throw you make within a minute. Now what it is, it's a reaction, similar to guidance. The range is 10 feet instead of touch again. And it's a reaction when a creature within 10 feet of you fails saving. So again, I love this because people, I don't think anyone ever used resistance. I never remember anyone ever taking it. Because here's the thing, like, whatever with guidance, you can you can use that before or while someone's doing it. Your barbarian at the table says, I'm going to try and break down the door. You know it's coming. With resistance, is because it's like the saving throws, you don't necessarily know a saving throw until it happens. You know? So the fact that this is a reaction is even more well suited, I think, to be a reactionary thing than guidance. You channel magical protection to one creature who failed a saving throw. That creature can roll a d4 and add the number to the save, potentially turn success. That makes way more sense. I presume this technically, by the way this is written, channel magical protection to a creature. Yeah, this can also be you as well. You could technically.
Yeah. As long as you fail a save, yeah.
Fail the save. I like that it's triggered by you failing the save and not by you having to make the saving.
I feel like that
it's only ever going to go off if you have already failed, and you're not going to be wasting your reaction or anything like that to roll a d4 when you've already cleared the mark.
Yeah, I feel like this is almost if like shield is your reactionary armor class buff, this is almost like your equivalent reactionary saving throw buff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'm quite a fan of. And the last one we have then is spiritual weapon, which I believe we spent a good couple of minutes last week just gloating about the fact that it's now concentration.
Yeah, it's look.
And I don't believe you can attack the first turn at someone now either.
Floating special force appears in range, but no, it does. Force appears in range in the space of your choice.
Oh, sorry,
you can immediately attack. So it functions, except for
the
which it's one that we said it last week. A spiritual weapon has always been a cleric favorite spell. It's a really, really good spell. But like almost too good. And I think the way Crawford explained it in one of the videos was that he was like, look, this has been a thing that we realized pretty much from day one that we made too powerful, but we just haven't had the opportunity to like retcon it like at all up until now. So I get why they're making a concentration. Technically it ruins a few combos that are possible with other concentration spells, making you very powerful, whatever. But I also don't think that, like, even with the concentration, it's still really good spell.
It is really
like you really cannot fault it. Like.
Force damage.
It moves independent of you, so like it can move. Like, does it have? I guess what's its movement speed?
20 feet. I think it's 20 feet now. It used to be 30. I think.
I'll check now. But Yeah, so like I guess like it can just spiritual weapon I assume can float. It just says it
Oh
has
yeah,
you can move it.
yeah.
It doesn't.
You can move it to any spot within basically the orb that would be the circle in which it can move. If you get me, in 3-dimensional space.
Oh no, it was 20 feet before as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that hasn't
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah, honestly, it's more or less the same. It's still a D8 plus your spellcasting mod. It's still a melee spell attack to make the hit. It's 20 feet. It can. I don't think there's a. Its range is 60 feet, which I think is the same. Yeah, it's pretty much all the same.
It's just the
other than the
concentration.
concentration thing. Yeah, which again is like it definitely takes away some of the. It trims off some of the excess goodness that the spell was, but even with that excess gone, it's still a really good spell, and the people will still be taking spiritual weapon. That additional ability, you know.
Yeah, I think like there aren't like particularly like with your clerics. There's not a whole bunch of like powerful bonus action spells that you're going to be missing out on if you use spiritual weapon instead. So like
And clerics only make the one melee attack anyway, meaning that this almost accounts for your second melee attack if you martial style cleric.
I can't remember because I haven't run for one, but war clerics, do they get the extra attack feature currently raw?
They have to use their bonus action, I believe.
Yes, sorry,
to
that's
do
it. Yeah, they do get 2 attacks, but they have to use their bonus action to do it. It's a feature in the war cleric.
It's a feature later on for them, yeah.
Yeah. No, like I think it's really good. Like hey, like if you're upset about it being concentration now, you can still flame strike someone and then hit them with a spiritual weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, like and look, clerics are no joke.
Flame strike, earthquake, tidal wave, all things clerics can do.
Yeah, exactly. And all things clerics can do, and then afterwards still hit a person with
oh my god,
spiritual weapon.
my guy's level to 15. And so my 2 spellcasters got their 8th level spells.
Oh, fun.
Mandroid took Sunburst.
Sunburst. Why I've not used Sunburst before.
Sunburst does a lot of damage. I'm just like, oh, you already did.
I feel like it's thematically on brand.
Oh, it's
12d6 radiant, lovely.
Yeah,
I'm blinded for a minute.
Yeah, I can't even get mad because it is absolutely perfectly appropriate for his character. Also, it's awesome. I don't care, but like it's going to go back to bite me.
He does need. Well, actually, does he use a spellcasting focus?
He is a druid, so I believe he has a druidic focus. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say otherwise he needs fire and a piece of sunstone, and you can make him hunt for that sunstone.
He always had. Oh, okay, yeah, true. Actually, yeah.
But if he's using the what you call it, the druidic focus that supplements his material components. So yeah. Well, that's fun. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's fun.
But Martin,
yes, Connor.
That's all the time we have for today.
It's been a fun day talking about the rules.
I always like talking about rules.
The rules. It's always how I hear it. Is it Jorgen von Strangle? That's his name in Fairly Odd Parents. That's always how I hear those words.
You're the Schwarzenegger parody. Yeah.
Do you mean the Rainier Wolfcastle parody?
Yeah, the parody of the parody of the parody.
Oh, it's like an Ouroboros of parody.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all the time we have for today. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you'd like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayers on Twitter. You can also find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, and Radio Republic. Barton, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, and also on the Micflayers podcast, the Micflayers podcast Twitter account at MicFlayersPod. But other than that, I'm not. Please don't find me on the internet. Other than that, that's a bit creepy. Connor, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter, and you can also find Martin on Hive. You can find me on Twitter and Hive.
Hive. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Yes. That new one. We're all not sure if we're migrating to just yet.
We're calling that the just in case accounts.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter and Hive at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1 N, very important. And every Friday here on the Micflayers podcast at 6 p.m. Irish time. So guys, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
See you next time, folks. Bye.